Hey, what's up, everybody? Johannes Moser here. Welcome back to yet another podcast, which you can listen to on Spotify, Audible, iTunes, and here on YouTube. And I am extremely excited that I'm going to be talking today with Dima Slobodeniouk, who is not only a phenomenal conductor, musician, thinker, but also a very good friend of mine. And I'm looking forward greatly to our conversation. And we've played together a couple of times, and the last time we've made music together was with his orchestra in A Coruña, and we played the Saint-Saëns cello concerto, and it sounded a little something like this. Dima, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time. How do you feel about these no audience concerts at the moment? What does it do to you energetically?
If I don't think about it, it doesn't do anything.
Wow.
So if I start thinking about it, I think it takes unnecessarily too much energy to process that. It's what it is. So one has to swim. If you fall off the boat, you need to swim. You don't think of how cold water is. You just have to swim. So I try to concentrate on the essential stuff and just do music. And to be honest, you only notice that there is no audience while you walk on stage, and then after that it's the same. At least that's what I want myself to believe.
Well, for you, it's maybe something different than for a soloist, because you are turned to the orchestra. So, I mean,
exactly.
For you, your environment, at least from the visual point of view, is probably similar to, well, although in concertgebouw sometimes on the left and right you have some audience members, but still you have the people that you work with in front of you.
Yes, and that is absolutely true. Of course, if I had to face the empty hall, it would have been different, obviously.
Yeah. I think you gave me a great intro to what I wanted to talk to you about, because I thought you would be a great person to talk to about musical heritage, because when you were 16 you left your home Russia and you went to Finland, and what you said about just swimming rather than thinking, I could imagine this would have been one of those situations where you come to an unknown territory and you say, okay, I just got to do what is necessary now. How did that feel for you?
Yeah, well, if I think about it now, it feels very necessary, and it feels that it was the right thing to do, and it feels that I was really lucky to have been able to face and learn the new culture. And in fact, well, it really has changed my life, or turn it upside down or downside up, whatever. But it's a at the age of 16, it's a huge change. But of course, back then it didn't quite feel the same. It was a huge shock, and I was not so sure whether it was for positive or negative. It was a necessity. My father was very he saw the situation very clearly. And we had good life in Moscow. We were not starving. We were okay. And my father was, he was assistant principal viola at Moscow Phil for many, many, many years. A funny detail is that my grandfather was actually principal viola, so they sat on the same stand. But so after that, he got into more like organizational stuff. He was good very skillful in communicating things to people and gathering people and organizing stuff. So he made a lot of charity projects for young musicians, helping them, also to help them get out of Russia and start the career in the Western countries. So, but for a while he did that, and then as Soviet Union collapsed in '91, all that became really somehow heavy and irrelevant, and he wanted to go back to playing, which he did. He applied for that position of actually also assistant principal viola in a small city in Finland, in Vaasa. He got the position and we moved, and that's it. So the change also for him from, for all of us, from Moscow to Vaasa, from 8 million inhabitants to 56,000. And and of course, and we moved in January. By the way, 26th of January. I don't usually remember dates, but this date I remember. And next year it will be 30 years. So
you moved in 92, not in 91, actually. So
1
year after
92.
the collapse.
It was 92. Yeah, it was after the August 91 collapse. Yeah. So yeah, answering your question, I don't even remember very much of how I, had to, how I did it, but obviously it shaped me as a person. And at the age of 16, you still learn. Well, actually, not still. You definitely learn. For the next 10 years, you absorb a lot of. So if I moved to Finland 5 years later, it would have been more difficult for me to learn the language, to maybe start understanding the new culture. But I guess in that sense, I'm really lucky that I was able to make that change in time, well in time.
Do you remember anything about Glasnost, about that whole period when the collapse didn't come with a bang, but it slowly started to, well, as the name indicates, melt away from the system. Do you have recollections of that melting time?
Yes, yeah. It felt liberating. It felt very, fresh air, a nice breeze. I didn't understand very much about the politics, but it was obviously a change for better.
Yeah.
And
so I guess you were still in Moscow when Yeltsin took over. Is that right?
Yeah. The thing was an interesting element. My first time abroad ever was in August '91, exactly when that thing happened. I was with my father at a festival in France, in Montpellier. And my mom was alone at home. So she saw all the tanks going past our house, and she obviously got really scared. But I was not there. I was with my dad elsewhere. That was my first time abroad.
To be in Montpellier in August is not the worst.
Not really.
First trip to do, I would say.
Exactly. So
quite remarkable. Yeah. Now, when people come to study with me, obviously they want to study with a German teacher, so they want to study the German repertoire, and I always recommend to them, as part of really immerse yourself into musical heritage, that they learn the language. And because obviously when you play Schumann, or when you play Mendelssohn, when you play Brahms, German language is really important. And we've talked about this before, but I would be really interested to hear, like, if you were to explain to someone like me that did not grow up in Russia, what are sort of the things or the tools that you need to immerse yourself in the music of Prokofiev, Shostakovich, and even maybe before Tchaikovsky and so on, from a Russian perspective, something that we as Westerners don't necessarily carry in our DNA.
That's a broad question, but very interesting one. The thing is that having tools don't necessarily guarantee the result. And again, you can achieve the result without having tools. So I would not limit it, or let's say limit understanding of music to only having the tools. Though I 150% agree with you that, for example, to understand certain the way certain music is written, you need to know the rhythmic aspect of the language, how people just simply think. And especially with German, it is very important because the way phrases are built and the way they are stressed has direct contact with a direct relation to the phrasing of music. In Russian music, what I find many times, performing Russian rap, is that, and I'm not the first one to say this, is that musicians try to make it sound too Russian. So in fact, it has been and it is a mixture of different cultures. There's no Prokofiev without mixture of French music, and obviously no Stravinsky. There is no Tchaikovsky without the German heritage, and it's all a combination. The one, perhaps one of the important aspects is the connection to the folk music and the singing aspect of music. So anything, even in the most percussive and aggressive moments of, let's say, Prokofiev or Shostakovich, there is still something which sings inside, and this I try to achieve myself. But I won't pretend that I can explain why is it, let's say, easier for me to do Prokofiev than for someone else. I don't know. I have heard that music and Tchaikovsky, and when I was growing up, the repertoire in the concert halls was rather narrow. And I must say, I haven't even heard that much of Prokofiev, but my mom loved Prokofiev. And I guess I inherited something of that. But how do you inherit things? You just find yourself liking it. Not because my mom, no one loves something because your parents do. On the contrary, many times, you say, no, I'm not going to like that thing. But there is something, and I can't explain it. I really can't explain it. But let's say, talking about Russian opera, I wouldn't try to approach it without a little bit understanding how language works. And that is with any opera, obviously. But if I was not Russian and I couldn't speak Russian, and I had to do, let's say, Evgeny Onegin, I would feel slightly alien first. But then, as an advice, I don't know, it's hard to give advices, but sometimes music really opens doors for you. So for someone to approach a piece or a culture which is at the moment a bit far away and alien, and there's a barrier, the first important thing is to take that barrier off, because that doesn't serve any purpose. So go for it and dig into it, and then the music will open up, or not, but at least give it a chance. We are, especially, well, in my earlier years, we were taught to respect music, to a bit, look at it as a picture at an exhibition or a sculpture of a great composer. And sometimes that distance to the sculpture or to the picture prevents us to really opening up to that. We respect it a lot, but we just have to love it. And again, I'm not the first one to say this, but I find it very important almost every week of my work. You know, it's not easy to come do Brahms or Strauss in Germany because of that. This is the first difficulty. Can I come to that country and perform their music without being part of that culture? Well, if they invite me, then I should give it a try. And then maybe, you know, that's the only way.
By what you're saying is that music holds, when you go to it with open arms, that music holds sort of an invitation that it will take you in. Like, I guess there's some music that will allow you to enter it more easily than others.
Yes,
I would think.
Yeah,
no?
Yeah, I really believe that. And it should be. There is a way in always. I mean, there is a lot of Russian music I don't feel connected to, and I don't perform that. Maybe it's you know, we are all individuals and we've been brought up in a certain way, and then, you know, kind of cooking in different soups. We are all different, so I think it's completely okay not to perform everything.
Yeah, exactly. Well, people should take that advice maybe more seriously, some of them. I really was taken by the way you did the Eroica in Lahti, and there's a wonderful video on YouTube where you conduct that piece. When you work with an orchestra that you know very well because you're their music director or you're their principal guest, I guess the relationship that you have must be completely different to an orchestra where you go for the first time and you do a big debut. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the different approach that you have with an orchestra that you've met many times, and an orchestra that you've encountered for the first time?
Yeah, there is a difference, last time I thought about it today, without knowing your question. I'm here conducting the Radio Philharmonic, and it's not the first, not the second, and not the fifth time. I've been here quite a lot. And yes, there is a lot of unnecessary friction gone on the first rehearsal compared to the first time in an orchestra. It's not only the question of not being so nervous or not being cautious, but it's also the question of trust. With your own orchestra, there's an established trust. You know, you trust them and they trust you because they have seen you in many different, again, soups. You've been, you know, experiencing things together as a team. So for a conductor, you know, giving trust and being trusted is the most important, actually. So it's a privilege, you know, to be able to. Thanks for a good comment about Eroica. That piece is particularly close to me, and again, I don't know why. There is something which connects, some frequencies which really connects, and we've had wonderful time with Lahti Orchestra preparing that, and I'm really happy about that result.
Yeah, and it's great to see that there were also orchestras before COVID, you know, besides the Berlin Philharmonic, that were already putting out great video content. I also came across a recording of yours with Prokofiev music of The Gambler. And that brings us back to the connection between, obviously, spoken word or written word with music, right? With Dostoevsky. I didn't know the music before. It's fascinating, actually.
It's fantastic. Yeah, it's a very different Prokofiev than known generally.
How did you come across this piece? And are you the one that digs up these pieces, or do you have just a very good programming director that takes these pieces out of the let's say out of the box?
Well, what happened is that, when we record for BIS, we discuss these things with the management of BIS and make these decisions together. So all these recordings in Lahti, which we have done, they were all created, giving and exchanging ideas. And I had one thing clear. I wanted to record Prokofiev, and exactly what we started searching and researching, and that was actually, I think the Gambler was the idea came from BIS, and I was very very happy to take that on. And it's funny because there is always a shadow on certain pieces by certain composers, and they're just not performed very much. And I somehow feel rather reluctant to accept the name curiosity. Sometimes pieces are taken or programmed as a curiosity. When composer wrote, he probably did not think of curiosity about any pieces. Like, I would love to compose a curiosity and leave it in the history as it is. So you either perform the piece or you don't. But if you do, you don't do it as a curiosity. You just do it as a classic, or, full steam ahead, really. So, and that brings us to the fact that, if we do take something on, we need to believe in it. It's better not to take it on. So for the time, I must say I haven't performed that since the recording. I have not performed Gambler. But I will. It's just a question of logistics. But thanks
now,
for
as I
reminding
understand,
me.
it's a suite, right? Is it from an opera that never was published, or?
It's a suite which he created himself. So, like for example, from the ballet Cinderella, apart from the music to the entire ballet, he created 3 suites. The other thing is that what happened with the suites, but like usually like Stravinsky, he created the suites for concert purposes, and other purposes, financial purposes as well.
Yeah.
but for practical purposes. But for example, in terms of, with regards to Gambler or Cinderella, practical aspect is not the most obvious there, because you need to really come up with a good program to be able to put that piece in. And the 3 suites of Cinderella, they also don't work. For example, the 3rd suite you couldn't play as a piece in the program, and actually in the 2nd it's the same thing. So what happened is that people kind of shut the rest of the movements off from the suite, and just perform the 1st suite from the Cinderella, which is being performed sometimes. So that's what I want to change, in the nearest future.
Right. When I see you conduct, and we had the pleasure now twice, once in Minnesota and once with your orchestra in Galicia, it's amazing to me to see how much in command, not only of the music you are, but also what an authority you are without being, exercising despotism. So it's sort of a natural authority. But I want to go back to a point that you mentioned. And, if you were speaking to a young conductor coming up, the points of friction that you mentioned that can happen in the first couple of rehearsals, what would be your advice to a young conductor, or maybe to your younger self, to avoid this kind of friction? Because now, you have such a natural approach.
You have no idea what's under the lid.
Well, let's find out.
I think certain degree of insecurity is very healthy. And you're talking about the authority. I guess it comes from the players. If they respect you, you notice that they listen to you, then you start feeling more secure. But if you approach the orchestra with too much of self-confidence, and again, self-confidence is great and very necessary, but too much makes you slightly blind. And there were cases in my life that, for example, performing the same piece with two different orchestras consecutive weeks. After the first program, you've achieved certain things by doing certain things. And then you arrive in the new orchestra knowing that you can do it. It's there. And then you start conducting and you notice that those keys which you found last week don't work. You have to build it all over again from scratch. So I would say avoiding that blindness in the beginning, knowing that you can do. There is no, in the conducting profession, there is no you. There is only us. It's you plus the orchestra. Nothing sounds if you do. So you have to find the keys and the tools.
That is one of the reasons why I would never want to be a conductor, to be quite honest, because I would feel so at the mercy of other people. Like, as you say, when you do this, it doesn't sound. Yeah. How do you cope with that feeling of, maybe it's a kind of a dependency even?
Dependency on what?
Dependency on others, because I mean, you do this and then something, you are judged by the result of others, right?
Yes.
I mean, that is quite an interesting psychological aspect of the profession. I don't know many other professions where that is the case.
Yeah, it can be nerve-wracking, but the result of the others is not the best model to explain the mechanism of this profession. I would say those weeks when you feel that the result is of the others, you simply didn't connect to the orchestra, and then that's not great. But if you can create a team and be a great team with the orchestra and make them believe in things which you want, then the result is of you and of the orchestra. And obviously, in that case of, for example, doing the same piece with two different orchestras consecutive weeks, the result will be very different. But it will be convincing in the best case.
Yeah. Now, as a soloist, obviously, I witnessed that back and forth between conductor and orchestra firsthand, because I'm standing right there where the conductor is, and I'm right next to the concertmaster and all the other solo string players, and I'm just sometimes surprised about the, let's say it's neutrally, about the psychological games that are going on between conductor and orchestra. And I've talked with conductors that say, yeah, they thrive on exactly that this is a psychological construct, and you have to figure out how people take and then make the best out of the situation. Is that something that you're interested in, or for you it's the downbeat and the music and that's it?
Yeah, you have to be interested in that because that's part of the profession. It has to become secondary when you make music. If you're only doing the psychological games, then you are not really focusing on the primary objective of the profession. But rehearsal technique is something which includes a lot of psychology. So, there are artistic aims and targets which you have, and the more clear you have them, the better you will get on board, everybody on board. But how you achieve that, that's a rehearsal technique which each conductor has, his own or her own.
Did you profit from having your father and grandfather being orchestra musicians, and you've also started as a violinist? So it was kind of obvious to you what the situation of the orchestra musician is, to understand better what is sort of the psychological mindset of an orchestra musician. Did that play a role in your development at all?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not sure if being a early teenager, I understood anything about psychology of the orchestra, but I certainly saw the orchestra, heard the orchestra, and kind of cooked in that chili con carne since very early age. So it was very natural for me to be in front of the orchestra.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about teachers, because it is fascinating to me that so many conductors have studied with someone like Jorma Palnuna, which you've also worked with, but they're also different. And I wonder if that is the trait of a great teacher, first of all, to select amazing people, but second of all, leave everybody their personality and teach a certain technique. How do you think that worked in the context of Jorma Palnuna and also your other teachers? Like, for example, you work with Salonen as well, who I admire very much. I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm a little bit careful with the amount of teaching I'm doing, because it's a huge responsibility, and it's very, very hard. You need to have certain natural talent for that. And well, Jorma was one of my teachers. Leif Segerstam was maybe the teacher which I worked with most, and Atso Almela, who was then professor after Leif in Helsinki as well. But talking about Jorma, yeah, his students are all very different. He had that, well, still has that approach that he didn't comment much on what was going on. He would just sit at the piano and play missing parts. But like, because there were sessions when we just gathered together and we in turns all conducting and then played in the same orchestra. So a little ensemble, like COVID. It's time for black humor. Come on, it's
absolutely 100%.
We can't get through it without. Anyway, so he wouldn't say anything, and people who came to study with him, well, especially from abroad, were quite shocked and astonished. That, okay, what's the big kind of mystery about him that he doesn't say anything? The thing is that he did say when you asked. And when you learn stuff, if you don't have any questions, it means that the level of curiosity and motivation to learn is rather low. So when you're really interested in getting to know things, you have a lot of questions. And people who ask him questions, they, benefited from that. And also, I think that's quite wise, because, it's always very difficult to give advices to people, because usually they have not asked for that advice. So if you give advice and there was a request, it's a completely different story, because you can actually, you can have a conversation, you can bring this subject, further, and each party kind of benefits from that. So that way of teaching, I think that's for conducting, it's really, really great, because you open the score and you start asking questions. I still do, just that there is no one to answer them.
Yeah, but I mean, to ask the questions and to put them out there probably then invites the answer to come to you more easily from yourself than not, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to find your own answers. But sometimes I do miss someone to, to look or to listen and to make comments, and someone whom I trust. You know, it's not very easy.
Absolutely.
But I did invite Jorma to one of my concerts about 1 year ago, 1.5 years ago, and he came and he gave me some advices which were very basic, but I was so happy to hear that. And yeah, and I'm also from time to time in touch with Leif, and we talk about things. So
yeah, I used this time now during COVID to take lessons myself again, and obviously that is very strange to some people because, you know, I'm a professor myself, but, you know, I really believe in lifelong learning, and I find it so refreshing. Just last week I had a lesson with an old teacher going through Don Quixote, and that's a piece that I played many times, but to hear someone talk about similar problems that I've experienced in a different light and coming from a different mindset, it's just fascinating, right? I mean, it's just it just really adds to the experience. I wonder though, with the questions, I mean, just being devil's advocate and obviously not knowing anything about how to teach conducting, if I think back on my 18-year-old self, of course, I had many questions, but I think what my first teacher, when I studied Geringas, what he gave me was a whole set of questions that I wasn't even aware about. He didn't necessarily give me answers right away, but he planted constant questions in me, yeah? And I think I wouldn't even have come up with those questions, let alone the answers, you know. So I feel that a great teacher can also do that, like to a degree where it does then the insecurity doesn't kill you because you're so full of questions that you're unable to move. But I'm very grateful for that period of instigated insecurity because it meant that you know, the thinking was really kickstarted in a way.
Yeah, that's it's true. It's that's why I'm really grateful that I've had 3 very different main teachers in conducting. They all gave me 3 aspects of looking at things, and Leif was and still is a master of verbalizing stuff. So he could somehow, using all the languages which he spoke, verbalize things in the psychology of music making for conductor from the, you know, physical point of view, what you do with your body, with your eyes, with your hands, fingers. Somehow he could explain, or not even explain, just open the subject so that you understood what you need to do, because we all have different, but, you know, to be able to get those revelations, something needs to happen. So, you know, first you come and embarrass yourself, and then you start finding out what is it inside of you which needs to be changed. But that embarrassment is part of the game. It's important really to dare to it's like, you know, learning the new music, which of the, you know, like what we talked about, of the culture which you don't belong to, but you need to dare to, you know, music is, it's like a horse. You are either on the horse or under the horse.
Right. I feel nowadays where conducting careers, you know, already need to start in the beginning of your 20s, and people are all hyped about, you know, the age and all that. Feels to me that there is not a lot of room to really go through that period of failure because you're always in the public eye. And that happens to very famous conductors of the newer generation. I find that, you know, they do an opera production of a piece that they don't know very well. And suddenly it's revealed that, yeah, they should have started with a youth orchestra with this piece, and then, you know, get to work out the kinks in private, and then go public with it. I wonder if this is sort of needs to be sort of corrected in a way that people need to get more chances to fail and learn through that, because there are no natural geniuses. At least I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. Well, genius, I'm not sure about that word. I'm not sure what it means actually. But natural talents, yes. There are people with more natural talent and then with less, but then it's hard work anyway for, but I see this as a problem too. I think in any case, there are plenty of chances to fail. It's just, the question is, how much of a spotlight do you have on you at that moment?
Exactly. Yeah. Now, you've instigated a. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So
it's okay. I was just saying that you have to fail anyway, and you will. I'm not talking about you, anyone. So it's just sometimes the career and the business side of it is unforgiving.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change the nature of human being.
Right. Absolutely. Now, you must have encountered a lot of youngsters because you have an orchestra, or you have a conducting academy in Galicia. Is that still ongoing?
Yeah, I hope it will be more ongoing there than at the moment.
Yeah.
And now, it's obviously on hold. We did not organize that masterclass this year, well, in autumn, and I think it was a good decision. Hopefully, we'll be able to do it in the autumn of this year. But yeah, we've been organizing this every second year, and it's been very popular and a lot of applicants. And I'm trying to give the younger conductors a chance to appear in front of the orchestra and also learn from our discussions.
Right, and it's a marvelous orchestra. I've been now lucky to be a couple of times with the orchestra in Coruña, and it's spectacular. And it's so nice that people have such an amazing work ethic and are so passionate about what they're doing. I've always felt this was rather incredible.
Yeah.
Speaking of orchestras, when I look back, sort of at the things that I will remember as milestones in my career, definitely Berliner Philharmoniker takes one of those spots, at least in Europe. And I saw your digital concert hall performance of the 2018 debut that you had together with Baiba Skride and conducting Shostakovich. You already had so much experience at that point. Does it still feel weird to do a debut on that level for you? Or is it like every week in a way?
Well, I would say that debut is not like any debut. So it doesn't feel weird. It's something you've been waiting for a lot of years. And that was a very special week. And for a conductor, talking about that friction, which you have when you walk in front of the orchestra, well, obviously, no one can say, being completely honest, that you can just walk in front of the Berlin Phil and feel like you are in your living room. So in that sense, that friction is very needed. It's a normal, natural process and feeling. You need a lot of adrenaline to do that. And it was a lot of fun. I was a very actually quite historic moment for the Prokofiev Second Symphony, which we did, because as far as I understand, this symphony has not been performed in a concert in the history of Berlin Philharmonic before.
Is that right? That's incredible.
That's the picture I got. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember this as a very special moment.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah. And do you watch that performance? I mean, do you go
No.
to the digital concert hall and you watch it yourself? Because I also don't watch mine. You don't want to.
I was just going to ask you, do you?
Oh, no. You know, the 10-year anniversary of it is coming up because it was in October 2011. So I thought maybe 10 years is enough, but I still have a couple of months to decide if I actually want to see it. I think, at least for me, so many emotions and so much preparation went into that one weekend that I'm probably almost value the idea of it more than the actual thing that you can watch on the digital concert hall, because obviously that is only displaying a surface of what is actually happening, right? I mean, all the feelings, emotions, that is just something that belongs to you. So I wonder if it gets diluted with the experience of watching it, but maybe not. Maybe I'll just watch it and then have a glass of beer with it and be fine with it. You know?
Or two.
Possible. Or two. Maybe by the second movement I'll need a second. That's definitely true. One last thing that I wonder about, because there are so many instrumentalists that turn conductors, and obviously you've turned to conducting very early on and really went through the schooling of it. As being a former violinist, do you sometimes feel that when you do Scheherazade, you want to take the concertmaster's violin and just want to show how it's done, or are you rather happy that you've distanced yourself from the instrumental side of music making?
I miss playing violin. That's a fact, and but it was a conscious decision not to continue practicing violin. You know, after I've made my diploma in Sibelius Academy in 2001, and basically have not practiced regularly after that. Talking about Scheherazade, no, I have never had a feeling in that piece that I want to take the concertmaster's violin and show him or her how it's done. No, but many other cases, yes. Usually talking about tutti playing, just simply some technical stuff in violin handling and you know, bow technique, whatever. That very many times, and I'm really grateful that I was able to, you know, to study violin for so long time and with very good teachers, and it's still in my system very actively. So though my hands cannot produce the result anymore, I seem to get results by verbalizing stuff, and it really helps. Really helps.
Is it weird for you to conduct repertoire that you've studied yourself and that you've formed an opinion on? Because I've played with a couple of conductors that are still cellists or that are former cellists, and you can feel that inside sometimes they wince a little bit because you play a turn of a phrase differently, or you take a different tempo or a different approach altogether. Is that something that happens to you at all?
Not really. I must say no. There is just you know, conducting an orchestra. There's enough of excitement there. I don't really feel that if I have a soloist who plays the piece which I've studied or performed. No, never had that feeling really. I don't know why, but just somehow I don't connect to that way.
I see. Well, lucky you, and also maybe lucky soloists, right? That you can just approach it in a very natural and generous way. Dima, thank you so much. We should wrap this up. Thank you for your time, and good luck with the performances in Amsterdam. Tell me when the broadcast is, and then maybe we can get people to watch it live.
It's the 7th of February at 10:30 Central European Time, so Holland time. From Kosekebouw.
10:30 in the morning. Okay.
10:30, yes.
Fantastic. Well, I'll definitely be watching that.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me here, and it was great. You did your homework fantastically. Great questions.
I try. Dima, thanks a million, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye. Ciao.
See you. Bye-bye. Bye.